Hey plant people, thank you so much for stopping by. Today we've got a lot going on. So first of all, I've got a bunch of plant chores that I need to do. So this is going to be a predominantly plant choresy type video. However, I ran out of sphagnum moss and orchid bark for my soil mix. And sphagnum moss for some moss poles because there are some things that I need to put on a moss pole. So I had to go to Lowe's to pick that up. And you know, when we go to Lowe's or Home Depot, like, we're checking out the plants. We're gonna check out the plants. It is what it is. So I did a little like mini plant shopping, big box plant shopping type deal. What I'm gonna do is after this intro, I'm gonna just put that footage in and I'm gonna put some music over it so you can just kind of like see what's up in the Lowe's as of now. If there are any plants in that section of the video that you want to know the name of, just leave a timestamp and I will do my very best to comment back and let you know what type of plant that is so that you can look it up if that's something that you're interested in getting. But I just really love going to Lowe's and Home Depot and just checking out and see what they have in stock. I had a couple of really good finds, spoiler alert, and we are going to be dealing with those a little bit in this video as well. We've just tacked those onto the plant chores because I did literally nothing. I got 2 plants. I've done nothing with them. I just walked through the door and I just brought them in. So we've got some like analysis to do there to figure out what I need to do with these guys. So if that sounds fun to you, I will see you in just a second after the plant shopping. All right, so we are at my dining room table and we are ready to go. I got all my stuff ready. I got a lot of stuff that I need to take care of. I've got, high priority is I've got to figure out what to do with this Epiprenum pinnatum albo that is growing a lot. And I have decided that I do, in fact, want to put this on a moss pole. So this needs to go on a moss pole. We have my white knight, which I want to be on a moss pole. And then we've got my white wizard, which is on a moss pole. But I don't know, I think I just want to chop this up because the white wizard and the white knight are essentially the same plant. This has the green stem. The white knight has the burgundy stem, which I prefer. And I just don't want to have a million of the same variety of philodendron all in moss poles because moss poles take up a lot of space. So even though I really like this plant and I think the variegation is really good, I think I lucked out on this. I can just chop this up and see what happens with some of those cuttings. I may end up maybe like selling some and I may keep one or two. I don't know. I probably won't keep any actually because I have this other one. This came off of the same plant as babies. I'm assuming this was like tissue culture or something. I got this at Kroger. I think it was Kroger. A long time ago, like over a year ago. And all of these were in the same pot. And I just separated these out because this was like the main plant. And then these were like the really tiny baby plants. And I don't think I need all of this white knight. You know, like I've got these two babies. Actually, it's put out another baby. So there's 3 in here. And then this one, which is the big one, and it's got a baby at the bottom. So it's like I like this plant, but I don't like it that much to have 5 of these. And the variegation on this one is really, really good too. So likely what I'll do is I'll keep this one and I may end up sticking these in some cups and selling these once they start growing maybe. Unless one just came out with like some crazy good variegation or something, I might keep one. Because it's at the top of the moss pole too, so it's like I'm definitely, even if I left this on a moss pole, like I do not want to extend it. And then therein lies another problem. So we're just going to chop this one up. And then in the future, if I want another one on a moss pole, I can just put this one back on a moss pole. So no biggie. And then instead of having this one on the moss pole, I want my white knight on the moss pole. And then I actually want this philodendron radiatum. I want this on like a short moss pole. Like I know this is not a climber, so this does not need a moss pole. It has like the self-heading pattern. However, its aerial roots are just going nuts. I don't know if you can really see in there very well. But it's got aerial roots coming out all over the place. And I had seen, I think that it was Sprouts with Joy who had her philodendron ring of fire on a moss pole, which is also like, I guess not necessarily a climber, it's more of a self-header. And it looked so good. Like, I just like how it kind of forces the leaves to go forward instead of forward and backwards. So it kind of like conserves space also. And this one is already kind of going in one direction. So I thought like, no biggie. Like I could definitely get this on a moss pole and just see, like not a really tall moss pole, but maybe like, I have this one that I had cut. This is like one moss pole that I had cut in half and then stuck the other, like another half on as an extension. But I think if I just use like the half of this, that would be good for this one. So it would just give it some more space for its roots to spread out in there. And then we'll just kind of see in the future what happens, if it wants more of a moss pole or what. And then I've got a couple of things that I need to chop. So I want to chop my Syngonium. Oh shoot, I just knocked that over. I want to chop my Syngonium albo. Even though it's not huge, like it has been actively growing and it does have some aerial roots sticking out. And I want to get this more of like a bushy look as soon as possible because I really just am not a huge fan of this like really long petiole look, like scraggly kind of looking guy. Like the variegation is beautiful and I love this plant, but I really want that to be bushier. So we're gonna chop that up, and then I also need to chop my Syngonium chia pence because it has given me its second all green leaf. So that is not gonna cut it. So we are gonna chop her up to hopefully encourage that variegation to come back so she doesn't revert. And I really need to chop my Philodendron domesticum too because its variegation is not looking the best. But I don't know if I want to do that right now. We'll see. We'll see if I get to that. And then I've got a couple of just things that I need to cover. So I've got like my Philodendron Melanocry, some little like baby cuttings. I just need to refresh the soil on this one because I think that's in that gross soil. And then I have this one. This is I can't pronounce this name, but it's a white bat flower. And I still have this like in the plug from where I got it. Somebody had asked me when I get these starter plants in, if I just like immediately take them out of the plug, like you can see the plug in there. If I immediately take them out or if I wait. And it depends for me because when I get them, if the roots are like crazy good and the plug's like not super dense, I'll go ahead and gently peel it off. But if the roots are not very substantial, I normally just leave it in the plug when I first pot it up, and then I'll go ahead and like remove it by the second, like when I repot it the second time, because by then the plug is normally like a little bit looser and it's a little bit more easy to peel away. Like this one's falling apart pretty easily. But I'm wondering if like, because the plug is in there, if it's causing some issues for it. The plugs are not gonna like murder your plants in most cases. Like the nurseries put them in there because it's good for seedlings to grow in, but sometimes as they get older they can kind of just have issues getting out of the plug. So you can, I normally remove it later on as the roots are like stronger, so I'm not breaking them off as I try to remove it and get them into soil, because in greenhouse conditions the plugs are great, but in your ambient home conditions it's not. It's a little bit dense in most cases. Although I don't speak obviously for everyone, I'm no expert, but everyone's growing conditions are different. So maybe it would work in your environment, but in my environment, it just doesn't end up being the best. And she's just not been looking great. Her leaves are kind of yellowing. She's got some crispy tips, like her new leaf that came out has a little crispy tip. And she's working on another leaf now, and I really actually like this plant a lot. The flowers, I'll put a picture on the screen. The flowers are just like absolutely insane looking, and I don't know how feasible it is to expect this to bloom indoors, but I would love for that to happen. And I think the first step of that is to get her where she's not so crispy. They do like to be consistently wet too, so it probably has something to do with me underwatering it. But yeah, so we got to do those. And then as I mentioned in my intro, I have 2 new plants that I got from Lowe's. One is a Hoya, one is an Aglaonema. And I've not done anything to those plants. Like I just literally just walked through the door with them. So I've got to do some, I'm gonna repot one of them. And then the other one I just need to like inspect and trim off some dead leaves and stuff and make sure that it's okay. But I've got my clippers ready. So I think I'm gonna start with chopping the Syngonium chia pence and just see what happens. See what we got going on. And she is slightly rooted into this pole, so I don't know how hard it is gonna be to get those roots out. What I'm thinking is, I think I'm gonna trim her back to this leaf. So these will stay on there, and then one variegated leaf, well, 2 variegated leaves and 2 non-variegated leaves will be cutting off, because I can see the stem still has some variegation down at this point, so that's where I wanna cut it to. Do you have spider mites? I can't tell if this has spider mites or if it is an actual, I think it's an actual spider, which is okay. Because I don't see any spider. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's just a, so let's just be careful in there. So where are we gonna chop? Right here. There we go. I'm gonna see if I can pull her out now. Gently. I may have to cut these roots if they don't want to come out. So we got one. Okay, this is gonna take me a minute. I'm gonna speed this up and I'll see y'all in a second once I get these roots out. Okay, so we have this top cut with 4 leaves, and I am gonna go ahead and chop this a couple more times. And then we have, these really look like spider mites. Oh, she does. She has spider mites, grody. Okay, so I'm gonna pest treat. This part doesn't look like it has them. Okay, so I'm gonna spray these down at some point before I put them away for the day for spider mites. But this is my new main Syngonium Chia Pence. And we will hope that before too long we will get a growth point and some new variegated growth on her. So she needs to go over here because I have got to treat her for spider mites. And then we've got this. This is what I pulled out of the pole. So she had rooted in there pretty well. I'm just going to try to remove as much of the moss as I can from here. Okay, so I'm not going to go nuts with it. I think that is good enough. And then I am going to go ahead and cut this into, let's see, yeah, probably just 3 total cuts, because this is the one that has the leaf coming out. This is the reverted part, and then these both have variegation. So hopefully these will be variegated, even if this one doesn't come back as variegated. And I've got a little cup of water here, so I'm just gonna stick these in here. Actually, I'm gonna wait a minute. I'm gonna let them callus over just for a second. I always forget to do that. So we're gonna wait on that. And then, what else do I want to chop? Oh, I want to chop this. This will be next. I know, man, I really kind of don't want to do it, but I know that I need to. So I'm not going to be squeamish about it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and pull him out of here. Okay, so I have totally cut him out of there, and actually he has like a couple of growth points that are sprouting already at the bottom. You can see that we've got like a little leaf right here, and we've got one on the other side too. So that one is already sprouting, and he was pretty rooted in there too. Not like tremendously rooted, but pretty well. So the internodal spacing on this one is pretty condensed. I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna make a few chops in here. Okay, so we have got, I'm gonna let these sit out and callus for a second too, but we have got the top cut, which is 1, 2, the bottom cut 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 nodes with 1 leaf. And then also I've got this little baby that was on the bottom. I don't think that this is probably gonna make it because it only has 1 little tiny root, but I'm gonna stick this in with my other one and just see what happens. Actually, I think I'm gonna repot this. I might go ahead and stick this in a bigger pot with some fresh soil, and I'll put that in with that here in a second. Hopefully I will not lose that little baby. So now we just got this empty pot, and I'm just gonna literally throw away this root system. Like, I am not concerned with it. I just want this pole. Okay, so I grabbed a couple of these. I think these are like 4-inch pots. I think I want to put probably that in there, just a little bit bigger. And I got a couple of these 1 gallon pots just in case. Okay, so I think I want to deal with this first. This variegated radiatum. And I don't know what the roots look like in here. Let's see. They're pretty good. Just gonna gently break up this old soil. It actually is getting a little rebound. Oh, and it does have a plug too. All right, so I just kind of gently broke up that soil plug in there and detangled its roots. And I'm not gonna go too crazy, like all these roots that are like attached to these cocoa chunks, I'm just gonna leave those alone. I'm trying to figure out what, like that's too small. Oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna put the pot that my white wizard came out of, I think I'm gonna put it in there. And I've got a garbage bag that I'm just gonna dump the soil into. Use a little bit of that just to shove into the hole, into the bottom here. That soil is, this soil isn't like terrible soil or anything. Like this was a good mix of soil. It just, I like to give them fresh soil when I repot them. And it's got like all the roots from where the white wizard was in there. So don't really want that. And then I've got my soil mix here on the floor, which is just cocoa coir, cocoa chunks, perlite, horticultural charcoal, and orchid bark. And I'll show you, I'm going to talk a little bit about the orchid bark that I found at Lowe's that I really, really love here in a second when we get to like the Lowe's haul portion of this. But I'm just going to put a little bit in the bottom here. I still do not have a potting mat. I'm still using, today we're using a cut up garbage bag. So we've really, the creativity has really escalated here instead of me just purchasing a potting mat, but it is what it is. Okay, so I've got a little bit of soil in there, and then, oh yeah, I only want half of this. I'm gonna pull this off. Oh, Lord. Okay. Okay. Because like I said, this is not going to be much of a climber, so this just kind of gives it like a little bit more room for that root system to grow, and it'll kind of keep those leaves going forward, which is what I'm hoping for. Okay, so I'm going to get him in here. I'm going to kind of like gently guide those aerial roots that he's been throwing out into the pole. I'm going to break off these little baby leaves on the bottom. I've actually been kind of like gravitating away from using, I used to use just like soil mix in the bag. What is it, like just like compost, or it's like organic, whatever. But I actually have been liking using like the cocoa coir. They come in these bricks that are dehydrated, and you just put them in the sink and let them like soak up the water from like a bowl or something. And then they expand and they kind of fall apart into this like soil mix. But I've just found I've had less issues with root rot with that, like that mixed in with my other normal stuff like orchid bark and charcoal and stuff, than when I was using regular soil. So I think maybe I'll stick with that primarily now. And then I've got my trusty systemic granules, Bonide systemic granules for a pesticide, and I'm just going to sprinkle these in and shimmy those down. Okay, so I've got him in his new home, and I just went in and like very gently, if you can see around his base down here, I just gently taped him through one of the openings in the pole to kind of hold him up against there and hopefully help persuade him to root in there. So I think he is looking pretty good right now. So I'm very happy about that. I need to find him a pot, a cover pot to go into from somewhere in a little bit. Okay, so what do I want to do next? I've got leaves everywhere. I need to, do I want to do my white night? Maybe I do. And I also think I want to steal my white night's pot. It's one of the old school Home Depot Lowe's pots, and I think I want to put him in here. Yeah. That looks so cute. Love that. So I'll need to water him also, but we'll deal with that in a minute. So for this one, we're gonna go ahead and do this. I need to make a moss pole. So I've got, this is already dampened sphagnum moss. So I've kind of, let me move that out of the way. Kind of rinsed that off and let it soak for a few minutes to absorb that water. And also something that you may want to consider too, like if you're new to moss poles, I had not really like thought about this, but when you make a new moss pole and you put all that damp moss in here and then you put your plant on it and you go and you like water everything through, you don't immediately put it back in its cache pot, like its decorative pot, because so much water drains out of this pole and you will just totally rot the roots. Something I literally did not think about. Like I would just rinse it through, let it kind of like initially drain, just like I would like if it weren't on a pole. And then once it slowed down, I would put it back in the cache pot. But the sphagnum moss just continues to drain like gently for so long that there's still like, when I would go back and lift the inner pots out of there, there'd just be so much water in there. Like it was just drowning in water. So if that's not something that you've thought about, just make sure you really let those suckers drain, because I've not been using moss poles for a super long time and that was something I did not think about. I've got dirt literally everywhere. This is ridiculous. I had mentioned previously that I got these moss poles off of Amazon, and the ones that I really liked, like you can see these are kind of like bluish tinged. These are like totally clear. These were the ones that I really, really liked, and I can't find them anymore. Like when I go to repurchase on Amazon, they're not there. So I found these, which look very similar. Like they look like essentially the same thing. And these are fine. Like I don't have any issues with the pole itself, but who the heck designed this? Like literally I could just, if you saw me trying to pull the plastic off of this, like this is coated in a layer of plastic that you're supposed to peel off. I guess it's like a film to kind of protect the moss pole, which I mean, it's just like a cheap piece of plastic. I don't care if it's protected or not. But like the edges, it doesn't peel off easily. So it like peels off in little strips. So it takes forever to peel it off. And then you have to individually peel off every single piece from between. When I tell you I was about to have a nervous breakdown peeling all of that stuff off. Now you can kind of see it on this corner, like how it is supposed to peel off of there. But you have to individually peel all of this off. So I've been leaving it on there because I'm like, I literally cannot deal with this right now because I will go insane. It took me, I peeled it off of one and it took me like 30 minutes to get it all off of that. And I was like, I have 8 of these. I'm not spending 4 hours pulling plastic off of moss poles. Like the moss pole itself is fine. Great, no probs. But that freaking film, like I don't need a protective film on my $5 moss pole, you know, like just leave it off. I don't care if it gets scratched up. It's crazy. And obviously that was not something that I had like considered. Like, I didn't know that was something that I needed to be wary of when purchasing moss poles, but now I know. Now I know. Okay, so I think that's enough. I'm gonna pop this back together. So I've already got it in the size pot, but since I'm adding a moss pole, I'm just going to start over in a different pot so I can just kind of get the moss pole in there and then transfer him over. Let me see if I can pull him out of here, like how hard this is gonna be. He definitely has some root rot. Then I'm gonna reuse some of this soil and just shove it in for the bottom of this moss pole before I put this into the pot. All right, done. And then I'm gonna give him some fresh soil. So I'm gonna use the same soil mix that I've been using. I'm gonna fill this up just a little bit. And this it is actually like 2 plants. I think I got this at Home Depot a while ago, and as they typically do, they put normally put multiple plants in each pot. And I'm just going through and pulling off some of these roots that look kind of gross. This mix that I'm putting it into is definitely more chunky. So I'm sure that will do this some good with its roots being kind of funky. I always have issues, like one of my biggest issues since I started collecting plants has just been like getting the soil mixes right. Like this is something that I still struggle with sometimes. The soil mixes right for each individual plant because they can just be so different. Like sometimes I'll have no issues with a specific soil mix with like one philodendron and I'll go put another one in there and it'll have a bunch of root rot. So I just don't know. One of the things that I've noticed though is just like whatever mix I'm doing, make sure I'm putting like a lot of perlite and orchid bark. Like I did not in the past realize how much cocoa chunks break down. So like even though when you put them in like these, like the pieces of coconut husk or whatever, you put them in and they're super duper chunky, but then after a while they break down and it's just like a really dense soil. So it's really important to make sure you're using enough perlite and also orchid bark, because orchid bark does not break down nearly as fast as the cocoa chunks do. So it keeps things nice and chunky for longer. Like you don't have to worry about it breaking down really quickly and making the soil too dense. Because I always thought like cocoa chunks are like super chunky. They're called cocoa chunks. Like that's what their purpose is. And they are chunky to begin with, but then they break down and then it's just some thick, chunky dirt, like dense dirt, which is not helpful. Yeah, this has got like, I feel like it's original roots that were in, you know how when you get a plant, like I've got one I'm about to show you that I got today, but they're in that like moss, like peat, or it could be core, cocoa core, like 100% cocoa core. It's that kind of like, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever and you ever get a new plant from there, it's that like kind of powdery type brown whatever that they come in. And I feel like every time I go and I repot something from that, I have root rot. Because actually I'm just going to trim this whole bottom part of this off. Because it's like, I guess those roots are so used to being in that, they just can't adjust to the soil. Or maybe it's just where I'm at. Maybe not, I guess not everybody has that issue, but here in my environment is definitely an issue. Okay, so I think the rest of these look okay. Like, they're not great, but they're not total mush. Okay, and I'm kind of wondering, I probably shouldn't pot these together since they're both like kind of big, but I don't care, I'm still gonna do it. Which way do I want them to go though, is the question. Do I want them this way? Maybe so. This one's kind of veering to the left. This is something also, like when you're repotting plants, remember to like check which way they're growing before you stick them in there, because I feel like I always put them in there one way and then they end up growing the opposite direction. And I'm like, if I had paid attention to where the growth point was, this wouldn't be an issue. Okay, yeah, I think this one's definitely gonna go. Let's see. I always think it's so weird, like when you break off a philodendron leaf, the smell, like it has that very distinct smell. It reminds me of ladybugs. Like when you're holding a ladybug and they smell that like weird whatever. It smells kind of like funky. You know what I mean? Like when you're holding a ladybug and you're like, what is that weird funky smell? And that's exactly what this smells like to me. I need to look that up and see like why that is, because I would be interested in what correlation there is between philodendrons and ladybugs for them both to smell like that. Dang it, I just accidentally broke off an aerial root. Oh gosh. Okay, so I have got this guy successfully on a moss pole, and I've taped him again up against the pole up here, and I know it looks kind of like funky the way that he's really like tied up tight to the top, but as this grows, I want to promote those leaves to start growing forward instead of out to the sides and like all the way around like they were before, because it wasn't on a pole. So when it's really close to the pole up there, it'll start pushing its leaves forward, and then also because it's like closely up against the back, all of its aerial roots will grow into the back of it. So I think that is looking so good. Like I'm so happy that I have him on a pole now. I may put it back in just this like random cover pot that I have for now so I can keep it out of the way. So that is another one that's done. I need to make one now, I think, for this guy, my Epiprimnum albo, and I think I'm actually just going to use this half one for now because they're so tiny, and then when they get bigger I'll stick a bigger one on top of that, and then I plan to, once it starts like maturing a little bit, I'll do like a chop and extend so that those mature leaves continue to size up. But I think for now this will be fun, so I'm just going to shove. Do I want to take this apart? Probably not. I'm just going to shove some sphagnum moss in the top of this. So I think what I'm going to do is just shove it in this tiny little, like it's such, these leaves are so tiny, I don't think it matters right now. I'm going to put some of this dirt that I have sitting on the table in here. Okay. Beautiful. And most of its roots, like its root system is not very big right now, so I'm not really concerned with it not having a ton of space in here. I think it'll be fine. I'm gonna see, I've got so many cuttings in here, and some of these are all white also, so I don't think that those are really gonna like survive super long. I'm just gonna dump all of this out gently, or try to dump it out gently. And I'm gonna see which ones of these guys are looking the best. This may be excessive, but I'm gonna try to shove all 5 of these on here just because, like, I know this is not a big pot at all, but the idea is that it's gonna have this whole pole to put roots into too, not just this pot here at the bottom. So as it starts growing up the pole, its roots will be absorbing nutrients and water and stuff through this as well, not just the soil. So even though there's not a lot of soil at the bottom. But these are just all so cute. And my thing is I don't want to have a million pots of something. So I'd rather just have everything all together. So I've got this one. These all have a really good variegation. So that's the first one. This is the second one. I think this is the biggest. How many do I have? Do I have 6? 6 may be too many. I'm just gonna see how many I can fit in here because I've got these 3 also. So we're gonna see. I'm gonna go from like my favorite to least favorite to see who I can fit in here. I'm definitely gonna put these 2 that are the most mature. And I also think I'm going to take some soil out of here because I overfilled it a little bit too much. Okay, so that is another one down. And they look so cute in there. I genuinely cannot wait until these actually start climbing this pole. They look so good. I used to not care so much about epiprenum because I was like, everything's pothos. Everything's pothos. Like, it's all the same to me. Who cares? But these are just so beautiful. Like, the variegation on these leaves is just crazy. Almost threw it on the table. So pretty. All right, so that is another one finished. God, I'm really moving. I'm moving through all these. Huh. I think we're almost to dealing with the new plants. Oh, I need to chop up my syngonium. We can go ahead and do that. And I need to figure out what's happening. So we've got a couple more to do. Oh, and I need to put, what am I doing? I need to put these babies back in here. I'm just gonna stick the cuttings that I didn't use from my from the epiprenum albo. I'm just gonna stick them back in a pot. Even though they're mostly white or they're like have a very faint amount of green on there. So I'm like, I'm just gonna let them grow and who knows. Those are just going to go back into my bathroom. I just threw dirt everywhere, but it's fine. Now we're gonna chop up my syngonium. And I'm only gonna leave like 2 leaves on here. Maybe 1 leaf, I don't know. No, I'll leave 2 leaves. 3 leaves? Maybe I'll leave 3 leaves. I'll leave these 3. Here at the bottom. Oh my gosh, I really don't want to. There we go. So that is going to be what I'm leaving, those 3. Still cute. Let me see how many nodes I can get out of this. All right, so I got 2, I've got a top cut, 1 more with a node, and then I've got 2 little nodes that I'm gonna stick in a prop box somewhere. Hopefully, if I don't lose them. Done, so that was easy. That was an easy one. Next, I'm gonna deal with this white-bat flower. So I definitely need to break this plug up. I'm just gonna throw all this soil away. Oh wow, that's crazy. Her roots are actually really good. You can see all the roots coming out. So maybe that plug is just getting on her nerves. I'm just gonna easily, and it's coming apart pretty easily, so I'm just gonna break very gently. When you're doing this, just remember that that plug has all of its little fine roots going through there, and you're gonna lose some inevitably, but just be as gentle as possible. Okay, so she is now free, and we've got some really good looking roots in there. I do think I'm just gonna reuse this pot because this is like, this size is fine for her because she's so little. Okay, so we know it's not the roots. So I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm not watering her quite as much as she wants to be watered. So I just potted her back up in some fresh soil, and I'm going to water her in and stick her in my bathroom because it's a little bit warmer in there and a little bit more humid. So she may appreciate that. And then the last one, maybe, no, I think I'm gonna repot that White Knight, White Wizard. Last one that I want to check on is this is my Melanochrysum that I've decided to let grow like just totally crazy. Like I'm not even gonna care about it because these like have been the most jankety plants for me. Like, I don't know. I've seen so many people saying the same thing, that they have had like nothing but issues out of them. They've had like crazy leaf shapes, like they just get stuck all the time. They're malformed, blah, blah, blah. So I'm literally just going to grow this as like a crazy, almost like a trailing plant. I'm just going to let it do whatever it wants to. And if it wants to grow crazy, then it can grow crazy. But I've got four of these little cuttings. I had one main Melanochrysum at one point, and I cut it up into some nodes, and these baby plants grew from those nodes. But I think the soil is just too dense, so I'm just going to freshen up their soil really quickly. Okay, so I've got them in some fresh soil, and they just need to be watered, and they will be good for a little bit. And last one, we're going to tackle this other White Wizard that I have. I'm going to throw all the soil away. And I'm going to size it up just a little bit. So I'm going to go from this to this, which is just like a very small, oh my gosh, I'm getting dirt everywhere. Very small increase. So he has been upsized just a little bit. So we've got a little bit of a bigger pot with some fresh soil. And then we have the babies back here. I did pot that one little baby that was in my other White Wizard that I just chopped up and just stuck it in here. I'm not 100% sure that that's actually going to make it, but you never know. I'm just going to stick it in there and we'll see what happens. And I think that concludes, I think that was all the stuff that I like really needed to take care of plant chore wise before I went to Lowe's and got 2 new plants. So we are going to have a little mini haul. And the first thing, the reason that I had gone to Lowe's is I needed more sphagnum moss because I genuinely did not think that I had enough to do all the poles in this video. So I went ahead and got a couple more blocks. The one that I normally use is from Amazon, and it's this super moss, sphagnum moss. I will link this below if I can find the link for it. But this has been great. I really, really like this kind. It's like not super dirty, and it comes in, I get the mini bale, and it looks like a little bit small, but it's very, very compacted. Like this is a little bit compacted. It's like dried out, but the other one comes, it is like almost a solid mass. Like you really have to break it apart before you soak it up, before you soak it in water. So it has like a ton of volume to it. So it looks like a smaller block, but it actually, well, I mean, it's bigger than this, but it's more condensed. So you actually get a lot more moss. This is okay. I found this at Lowe's, like I said, for us, it's in the outdoor area with the other orchid stuff. And this is like, okay, I don't like it quite as much as the Super Moss, but it's definitely, it's only $5. So it's great in a pinch, like if you just need something really quick and cheap. And then I also had to get some more orchid bark. I love this orchid bark. Like their sphagnum moss is like okay, but this mix is great. The orchid bark that's in here is so much better than the Miracle Grow orchid bark, which is what I had been buying previous. And this also has chunky perlite and horticultural charcoal in it as well. And this is, I believe this is also $5 at Lowe's. And the reason I like this so much, like, I just feel like the bark itself is like a much higher quality. Like when you get Miracle Grow orchid bark, it looks like this. So it's like very thin and like flaky looking. But this orchid bark is like, I don't know, you can still break it apart, but it's much more difficult. Like I can't really break it apart. And I just feel like it's like stays around for much longer. Like it doesn't condense into the soil quite as much. So I really prefer this over the Miracle Grow kind because it doesn't condense as much and it lasts longer. And also I think this is $5 and the Miracle Grow is like $7 or something like that, which I think the bag is a little bit bigger. And this does come with the charcoal and the perlite in the mix, but the bark itself is such like a better quality. Like I always look for this, and I don't really use the Miracle Grow one anymore because I feel like it wasn't helping quite as much because the bark, it just broke down so easy. Like I can just flake it apart. So I really prefer that. But I had gone for those two things. And of course I went and looked at the plants because I was already there. Like, why would I not do that? And so the first thing that I found is an aglaonema, which is crazy for me because I have like very been anti-aglaonema for the past like 2 to 3 years. Like I just have not liked them at all. It's just something with their growth pattern, like the way their stems look just looks kind of unappealing to me. I don't know why. I don't know why. It just does. That's all I can tell you. But this is the aglaonema Ghost Frosted. And I had been eyeballing this one for a while. Every single time that I had gone to like Lowe's or Home Depot, they're pretty prevalent right now. Like you can find them pretty easily, at least in my area in Georgia, Northwest Georgia, they're pretty easy to find. And I just think this one is so pretty, like how silvery the leaves are. And it has some like cute little spots of darker variegation in areas. The veining is almost like, it's a very interesting, it's like a yellowy green almost. And it does look frosted. Like it looks like the Silver Bay, but with like a frosting over it. So I see why they named it that. But it's just so beautiful. And I thought, you know, I feel like I've really turned a corner with aglaonema. Like I've been noticing them a lot more frequently, and I've really been liking like the foliage and how well they grow and how easy they are. So I just thought this would be a fun little experiment. We're gonna try it out and we're gonna see how I like it. I do have a couple of other aglaonema that I've had for a while that I've recently started over, and even those I've been kind of liking. Like I feel like I've just kept them for a long time just because I've had them and I didn't want to like totally let them die off. But I've really been liking them. I've been liking the growth pattern. Just how easy they are. Like I feel like a lot of my plants are more difficult than they are. But this one is fresh from Lowe, so I've not done anything to it. It's still in the super gross. This is the soil that I was talking about. That's like it's like way too wet. It is in this self-watering pot, which I'll probably keep it in because I do use these, but I don't use them as self-watering pots, so I won't leave. I actually use them as the opposite. And that's to keep the plant kind of elevated. So when the water drains into the bottom, like it's not sitting there in the water. So I'll just pull this wick out. And then after they drain, like I'll dump out what is in here. Or even if I didn't immediately dump it out, like it's not just sitting there sitting in the water because it has this like raised thing in the middle that holds the plant up. And this was $15. So really good deal, gorgeous plant. And then of course you get the pot as well. But it's in that really like funky, it has like for the greenhouse or something. It's like just the cocoa powdery cocoa core or whatever. So I definitely need to get it out of that. That's gonna be the first priority. And then of course we've just got some leaves that are kind of like gross looking. So I'm gonna go through and cut off some of those leaves that don't look so great, and we're gonna repot her. And then I'm gonna wash off all the leaves that stay with Castile soap so that if any like pests or anything are on there, it'll kind of kill those off. And of course I'm gonna treat her with the systemic granules, and I'll probably go ahead and spray her down with some Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew, because it's just when you get plants from big box stores, like they often have pests. And although I don't see anything that's like jumping out at me, like literally jumping out at me, there's always just like some questionable stuff going on. So we're gonna clean her up really well. But first of all, we need to repot her. So I'm gonna get her in some of this chunky mix that is better draining. Ugh, I wish that thing would come off. Okay. So we're gonna start with that. I'm gonna just toss all of the soil that, because it's gross, it's just been sitting in there. And of course, like, she's just like drowning in water, which is very typical of plants that come from there. So I'm gonna dump all of this really quickly into this trash bag. Oh yeah, and look at those roots. She is definitely root bound. Okay, and I've got her as much of that soil off as I could into the bag. You can see here too, it had some of those. I feel like Aglaonema are typically in these. If you get them from the big box stores, those little like cages that hold the roots in, and you can see how good her roots look in here. So I really feel like Aglaonema are kind of like easygoing anyways. So in my experience, they've been pretty fast growers and not too picky. Like I had one, I think it was a Silver Bay that I had upstairs for a really, really long time, like in my neglect area, because I just had not been taking care of it well enough. And it had some kind of pests. I feel like it was probably spider mites. And she had just been, you know, I've not been wanting to deal with it. So she was just in really bad shape. She had a lot of dead leaves and stuff. So I just chopped her up and restarted her. And she's looking good now from her little like pieces that I had kept. I threw a large portion of that plant away because it had root rot also. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, so this is going to be the first plant that's in here. And I'm just removing, you can see here how the roots are coming out and around that cage that's in there. So we definitely want to remove that. It's just losing some leaves here. And I think what I'm going to do really quickly is head over to the sink, and I'm just going to rinse the soil off of these roots, and I'll be right back. Her roots look pretty phenomenal now that we've got all that gross soil off. They look really, really, really healthy. Oh, and we do have some more of that plastic netting that we're going to get off of there. Okay. And I need to break a couple of those leaves off, but first I'm just gonna get her pot ready for her. So I'm gonna have to use, I think I'm gonna use this one. This is like a 1 gallon pot because her root system is so big. Like she just needs a pretty big pot. So I'm gonna get some soil in here. So we have got her all fixed up now. I do still need to clean the leaves off, obviously, but she is looking a lot better already with all those crusty, gross leaves cut off of her. Honestly, with as big as her root system was, I probably could put her in an even bigger pot than this. But with her being in this previously, like going from this to this is a pretty decent upgrade. So I'm just going to wait until she fills this out a little bit more, and then we'll worry about upsizing her again, because I don't have any clear pots that are bigger than this right now anyway. So I need to order some more of those eventually. But I'm very happy with the way she is looking right now. She's so pretty. Like, I'm really, really liking this plant. So we'll see. I'm going to give her some time and we'll kind of see what happens. I don't know. Yeah, that's not going to work for that anymore. So I'll have to figure out a different pot for her to go in, because this pot is too tall for this. So that will be the next thing that we do after we water her in with the rest of this stuff. All right, and then I got one other plant when I was at Lowe's, and it is a Hoya. Now, I do not have any Hoya lacanosa in my collection, which is crazy because I've got a ton of Hoyas, and it's not like I dislike lacanosa. I just feel like most of the varieties that I see, like, they're not the #1 on my wish list, so I go with something different. But I found this lacanosa snow caps at Lowe's for $20. Like, I just could not obviously pass that up. That is an absolutely insane price for any Hoya this size, but I have never seen a lacanosa at Lowe's or Home Depot, period, much less this one. And I feel like for $20, that is crazy. That is crazy for one this size. So of course I had to get it. Like, I would literally lose sleep over that if I did not purchase it. Of course, this is in that same, it's in that same mix, like the really dense, whatever it is, it does have some perlite in this one though. So what I'm going to do is, before I do anything with this one, I'm going to let it dry out, because repotting these hanging baskets is just a really huge task. And I do not like to do it when they're soaking wet, because it's impossible to detangle their roots. And sometimes when you repot, or at least in my experience, when I've repot out of this, like whatever this Home Depot Lowe's mix is, and I pot it up into like a Hoya mix, which I've been doing. I used to put a little bit of soil in there, but I've not been doing that anymore. So I've been doing just cocoa coir, perlite, cocoa chunks, horticultural charcoal, and some orchid bark. And the last one that I tried to transition into that just totally crapped out. Like, it totally died. So I'm kind of nervous to go in and repot this one anyways, especially because it's so pretty. So probably what I'll do is I'll take some cuttings first, just to have like a just in case type thing, in case this one decides not to make it. And if y'all have any tips on like how to transition these from the Home Depot, Lowe's, like Costa Farms, cocoa coir, whatever nursery mix into a Hoya mix, like, please leave them in the comments, because that has been one of the things that I've really struggled with. And I've tried all kinds of stuff and it just never works. So we'll see. The only one that I've successfully transitioned over are my Hoya Carnosa, the Crimson Queen and the Crimson Princess. Nothing else has really made it out of that mix, which is a shame. Oh no, I lied. I've got a Bertonier that made it also. But I tried like 2 other ones or 3 other ones, and I think it was 3 other ones, and none of them made it. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully this one does make it. Like I said, I'm not going to do anything right this second. I'm going to let it dry out, and then we'll think about it. I do unfortunately think that I see a millibug on here, so that is interesting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this down. I'm not going to water it because it's soaking wet already, but I am going to spray it down with my Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew, just in case there are other mealybugs in here or spider mites or whatever, which is typical when you get something from a big box store. It does not reproduce and continue to infest this plant. So I think I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some systemic granules in here too, because it's like, what the heck, like, it can't hurt. And I'm just going to trim off some of these leaves. And then we are going to spray it down because I need to do my Syngonium chia pence also since I found spider mites on it. So I will see you in a second. Hello from my kitchen. We are back, and I did go back and chop up my domesticum. So this is the piece that I cut off. I know it seems like a very big cutting, but that thing just grows like crazy. And you can see it only, like this part of it only has a couple of really good variegated leaves. And the stem, it's like variegated right here, which typically is like alluding to the amount of variegation on the plant. And it gets really green above that. So I cut it all the way back to like the most variegated part of the stem. And I did that not just because of the like variegated striping on the stem, but also it had a growth point that it had already started activating on that part of the stem. So I was like, I mean, that's like the ideal place to cut it. And the leaves below that are super variegated, and the ones above it, which are these, there's only like a couple of fairly variegated leaves, and they're still not nearly as variegated as what I've seen other people's look like. So we're just gonna hope that we'll get maybe some more variegated offshoots from this. I'm gonna cut these up like between the nodes really quickly and put them in water. And then I'm hoping that that new growth point that's shooting out of vine is going to be more variegated. So I need to cut that up really quickly. And then I did also go ahead and put my chia pence and Syngonium and white wizard cuttings in water. So we have those. And then, so now I've got to do a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up this domesticum so that it can callus over a little bit before I put it in water. And then I'm going to mix up some of my Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew because I used that entire bottle, and I need to spray down that Hoya that I got today and my Syngonium chia pence because I did find some spider mites on there. And then I'm going to mix up some fertilizer also. So this is the fish emulsion. I've got some silica that I'm going to put in there. And then this is the Dynagrow. What did they rebrand this as? This is the Super Thrive Dynagrow fertilizer or whatever. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm also going to water through these plants that we just repotted that just need watering. right, guys, that is all I've got for you for this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Hopefully it was fun with the plant shopping, a little bit of plant shopping, a little bit of plant chores, a little bit of a haul. All that is left, I think, is for me to go through and clean up all of my mess and to put the plants back up, which is not that much fun to watch, so I'm gonna do that off camera. But I appreciate y'all so much for hanging out and watching and being here. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this from me, please like, please subscribe. It means so much to me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.